I'm Morgan, 32, and 2 months ago, I discovered my brother Taylor got married through Instagram posts. The brother I practically raised was beaming in wedding photos surrounded by family and friends, everyone except me. We were inseparable growing up, my little shadow through every hardship. When I texted asking why I wasn't invited, his response shattered me. My wife doesn't want you there. 4 years of watching Alicia slowly erase me from his life culminated in 6 devastating words. So, I decided that wasn't going to be the end of our story. Before I dive into what happened next, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. If you've ever experienced family betrayal, hit that like button and subscribe to join our community of survivors. Trust me, this story has twists you won't believe. Taylor and I were never just siblings, we were allies in the battlefield of our childhood home. With him being 4 years younger, I took on the role of protector early. Our parents loved us, but their marriage was volcanic. Eruptions of shouting followed by weeks of icy silence. I remember one particularly bad night when I was 14 and Taylor was only 10. Our parents' fight had escalated beyond the usual, something about Dad's late nights and Mom's suspicions. I found Taylor hiding in his closet, hands over his ears, tears streaming down his face. "Make it stop, Morgan," he whispered as I crawled in beside him. I pulled him close, covering his ears with my hands over his. "Focus on my heartbeat," I told him, "not their voices." We stayed that way until sunrise, and that night we made a pact. We would always be there for each other, no matter what. When we weren't shielding each other from emotional shrapnel, we created our own world. Our suburban Boston home had a small attic space that became our sanctuary. I decorated it with string lights and posters while Taylor brought up his comic book collection. We called it the Fortress. And it was where we escaped when things got too loud downstairs. My teenage years weren't typical. While other 16-year-olds were focused on proms and parties, I was driving Taylor to baseball practice, helping with homework, and attending every single one of his games. Not because I had to, but because seeing him smile from the bleachers when he pitched a strike made everything worthwhile. Life threw us another curveball when I was 18. Mom was diagnosed with lupus, and her health deteriorated rapidly. College acceptance letters sat unopened on my desk as I took on more responsibilities at home. I postponed my education for 2 years to help raise Taylor. Those were difficult times, but they cemented our bond. Our Aunt Heather was our saving grace during those years. When parents were fighting or Mom was too sick, we'd escape to her cozy apartment filled with books and the smell of cinnamon. She taught me how to bake Taylor's favorite chocolate chip cookies and showed him how to fix my car when it broke down. She was the stable adult presence we desperately needed. When Taylor entered high school, I finally started college locally, but our Friday night tradition remained sacred. No matter what, we'd order pizza, watch movies until dawn, and talk about everything and nothing. During those nights, Taylor confided his dreams of becoming an architect, and I shared my journey finding myself in psychology studies. At his high school graduation, Taylor surprised me by dedicating part of his valedictorian speech to me. To my sister Morgan, who put her life on hold so mine could move forward, "You're the reason I'm standing here today." I sobbed uncontrollably in the audience, both devastated and proud that my little brother was grown. Even when I finally transferred to complete my degree at a university 2 hours away, we texted daily and I came home every other weekend. When he got into architecture school, I helped him move into his dorm and decorated his room with blueprints of famous buildings as a surprise. For 28 years, Taylor wasn't just my brother, he was my best friend. The first person I called with good news or bad. The one who knew exactly what to say when anxiety overwhelmed me. The person who remembered every birthday with thoughtful gifts that showed how well he knew me. Then, 3 years ago, Taylor met Alicia at a friend's engagement party. He called me that night, excited in a way I hadn't heard before. "Morgan, I met someone incredible," he gushed. I was thrilled for him, completely unaware that the woman he was describing would systematically dismantle our relationship piece by piece. The first time I met Alicia was at our parents' house for Sunday dinner. Taylor had been dating her for 3 weeks and was eager for the family to meet her. She arrived wearing an elegant cream dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent, her dark hair perfectly styled, not a single strand out of place. "You must be the famous Morgan," she said with a practiced smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Taylor has told me so much about you. Throughout dinner, Alicia was the picture of politeness, complimenting our mother's cooking and asking our father questions about his business. Yet something felt off the way her hand never left Taylor's arm, how she answered questions directed at him, the subtle way she redirected conversations when they focused too long on family memories that predated her presence. Taylor and I are thinking of taking a trip to Napa Valley next month, she announced. Though this was news to Taylor based on the surprised look that flashed across his face before being replaced by agreement. But Taylor, what about the architectural conference in Chicago? I asked, remembering how excited he'd been about the networking opportunity. Oh, that little thing. Alicia laughed lightly. I convinced him there will be other conferences. Life is too short not to enjoy the finer things, right, Taylor? Taylor nodded, and I noticed for the first time a slight hesitation before he spoke, as if mentally checking his words. Alicia has great taste in wine. It'll be fun. The red flags became more apparent in the months that followed. At a family barbecue celebrating Dad's birthday, I wore a new blue dress I'd saved up for. Minutes after greeting me with an air kiss, Alicia somehow tripped and spilled an entire glass of red wine down my front. Oh my God, I'm so clumsy, she exclaimed with theatrical dismay while dabbing ineffectually at the spreading stain. That color wasn't really working for you anyway, she whispered when no one else could hear. Then there were the subtle criticisms about my career choice as a school psychologist. It's so noble that you work with children, she said during another family dinner, especially when the pay is so modest. I could never sacrifice financial security for job satisfaction. She glanced meaningfully at her diamond bracelet, a gift from Taylor, who was taking on extra projects to afford her expensive tastes. Taylor and I had planned a weekend hiking trip to celebrate my birthday, something we'd done annually since college. 2 days before, he called to cancel. Alicia surprised me with tickets to a charity gala, he explained, sounding torn. It's important for networking, you know? Her father knows everyone in the industry. We've been planning this for months, Taylor. I reminded him, hurt evident in my voice. I know, and I'm really sorry. Well, reschedule, I promise. We never did. I started noticing how Taylor's circle of friends was shrinking. His college roommate Ryan stopped coming around. His childhood friend James, who had been like a brother to both of us, mentioned that Taylor hadn't returned his calls in weeks. When I finally gathered the courage to express my concerns to Taylor during a rare moment alone, his reaction alarmed me. You just don't understand, Alicia, he said defensively. She's helping me become a better person, introducing me to the right people. Not everyone gets her sense of humor. This isn't about her sense of humor, Taylor. You've changed. You're canceling plans, cutting off friends. Maybe I've outgrown some people, he interrupted, a coldness in his voice I'd never heard before. Alicia thinks I need to focus on relationships that help me advance. That was our first real argument as adults, ending with Taylor walking out and not speaking to me for 2 weeks. I soon discovered why Alicia was so focused on advancing Taylor's position. Her family, the Campbells, were Boston socialites who had lost most of their fortune but maintained appearances at any cost. At a Campbell family event where Taylor practically had to beg for me to be included, I observed Alicia's father cornering wealthy guests for investment opportunities and her mother critiquing everyone's attire in stage whispers. Throughout the evening, Alicia repeatedly compared Taylor to her ex-boyfriend Richard, a surgeon from a prominent family. Richard always knew exactly which fork to use, she'd say when Taylor hesitated at the formal place setting. But Taylor has other qualities, she'd add with a patronizing smile. The engagement announcement came at another Campbell family gathering 6 months later. I wasn't initially invited, but Taylor insisted. Alicia's mother arranged for the announcement to be photographed for a local society page, positioning Taylor's reasonable success as an up-and-coming architect into something far more impressive. Trying to make peace, I approached Alicia during the engagement party with a genuine olive branch. I'd love to help with wedding planning, if you need anything, I offered. Taylor and I are close, and I want to support both of you. Her smile was brittle as she replied, That's sweet, but I have a very specific vision. My mother and I have everything under control. Besides, planning isn't really for everyone. It takes a certain aesthetic sensibility. 2 weeks later, I discovered through Facebook that bridesmaid dresses had been selected, venue tours had happened, and Taylor had apparently participated in tastings for the wedding menu. My text to Taylor about being excluded went unanswered for days, only to receive a short reply. Alicia and her mother are handling most of it. It's easier this way. The distance between us grew into a chasm. The brother who once told me everything now responded to my messages with one-word answers or not at all. Our Friday tradition was long gone, replaced by cocktail parties with Alicia's friends whom Taylor admitted privately he didn't particularly like. I tried to maintain our connection, but it became increasingly clear that there was only room for one woman in Taylor's life now, and Alicia was making sure it wasn't me. The Instagram notification popped up on a Tuesday morning as I was preparing for a session with a troubled teen at the middle school where I worked. Taylor Mitchell and Alicia Campbell are now married, accompanied by a carousel of professional wedding photos. My coffee mug slipped from my fingers, shattering on the kitchen floor like my heart. The wedding had happened the previous weekend at a vineyard in the Berkshires. There was my brother in a tailored tuxedo, beaming next to Alicia in a designer gown that probably cost more than my car. Our parents were there, looking uncomfortable but present. Aunt Heather, surprisingly included despite her previous criticisms of Alicia. College friends, wed shared. Even Taylor's childhood baseball coach made the cut. Everyone except me, his only sister. My hands shaking, I called Taylor immediately. Straight to voicemail, I texted, "You got married? Taylor, how could you not tell me?" 3 hours later, while I sat numb in my office between appointments, his response came through. "I wanted to avoid drama. Alicia doesn't want you there. She thinks you've never supported our relationship." It was easier this way. 6 words in particular stood out like a slap. Alicia doesn't want you there. Not, "we decided," or "I'm sorry." The decision had been made for him, and he had allowed it. I called in sick for the rest of the day and drove to our parents' house, tears blurring the familiar streets of our hometown. Mom answered the door, her face falling when she saw my expression. "You know," she said softly, not a question. "How could you go and not tell me?" I demanded, my voice breaking as I stepped inside. Dad appeared from the living room, guilt written across his features. "We were sworn to secrecy, Morgan. They made everyone sign NDAs because of some exclusive magazine coverage deal." "NDAs? For a wedding? I'm his sister." The absurdity of it hit me. "You're telling me you legally couldn't tell me my only brother was getting married?" Mom wrung her hands anxiously. Alicia was very specific about the guest list. "We tried to convince them, did you?" I challenged, anger rising through my grief. "Did you actually stand up for me? Or did you just go along with it like you've gone along with everything since he met her?" Their silence was answer enough. "We didn't want to upset Alicia's plans," Dad finally said, his justification weak even to his own ears. "The Campbells were paying for everything, and you know how her mother gets. So you chose a fancy party over your daughter." I concluded, the final illusion of family solidarity crumbling before me. Later that evening, my friend Rachel called. She'd been at the wedding as her boyfriend was Taylor's colleague. "Morgan, I'm so sorry," she began. "I had no idea you weren't invited until I got there. When I asked about you, Alicia told everyone you declined the invitation because you disapproved of their relationship." The deliberate lie stunned me. She told people I was invited and refused to come. "Yes," Rachel confirmed uncomfortably. "She made a point of mentioning how sad Taylor was about your absence. She played the supportive wife consoling him over his sister's rejection." I hung up and collapsed onto my couch, physically ill from the betrayal. The carefully constructed narrative painted me as the villain, preserving Alicia's image while destroying mine within our social circle. The following day, I found a package on my doorstep, the gift I'd sent to Taylor's apartment weeks earlier, a vintage watch that had belonged to our grandfather, returned unopened with no note. The depression that followed was paralyzing. I took a leave of absence from work, unable to counsel children through their problems when I could barely function through my own. Friends stopped by with meals I couldn't eat, and reassurances that fell flat against the magnitude of my loss. It was Aunt Heather who finally pulled me from the darkness 2 weeks later, appearing at my apartment with determination and evidence. "I went to that wedding for one reason," she announced. Settling onto my couch, and pulling out her phone. To witness what they were doing and make sure you knew the truth. She showed me a surreptitiously recorded video of Alicia's wedding toast. My stomach lurched as I watched her raise a champagne flute, voice saccharine. "I want to thank everyone who truly supports our union," she emphasized, glancing at my parents. "Family isn't always blood, sometimes it's the people who want what's best for you, unlike those who try to hold you back from your true potential." The crowd murmured uncomfortably as she continued. Taylor has finally freed himself from certain negative influences that were preventing him from becoming the man he was meant to be. To new beginnings and cutting out toxicity, she concluded triumphantly. Heather stopped the video. "There's more, but you get the idea." It was a character assassination dressed as a wedding toast. She made sure everyone knew who she was talking about, even without naming you. I stared at the frozen image of my brother, seated beside his new wife, a strained smile on his face as he applauded her speech. He just sat there and let her do that. My voice sounded distant to my own ears. Heather squeezed my hand. "Hessen deep, Morgan. Deeper than I think even he realizes. But if anyone can get through to him eventually, it's you." I wasn't so sure anymore, but her certainty planted a seed of resolve. If Taylor was truly under Alicia's control, maybe he needed saving as much as I needed my brother back. After 3 weeks of silence, I decided enough was enough. The Taylor I knew and raised was still in there somewhere, and I needed to reach him before Alicia's influence became irreversible. I texted him directly. "I miss you. Can we talk? Just us, please. Coffee at Brewster's this Saturday." To my surprise, he agreed. I arrived early, securing our favorite corner table and ordering his usual black coffee with one raw sugar packet on the side that he never used but always wanted just in case. When Taylor walked in, the changes in him were subtle but significant. His posture was stiffer, his casual style replaced by a crisp, button-down and designer watch that screamed Alicia's influence. Most concerning was the wariness in his eyes when he spotted me, my brother, who once ran to greet me with bear hugs, now approached cautiously like I was a stranger. "You look good," I offered as he sat down, trying to break the ice. "Thanks," he replied, not returning the sentiment. "I can't stay long. We have brunch with the Campbells at 11. I nodded, determined not to waste this opportunity. "I just want to understand what happened, Taylor. With the wedding, with us." He shifted uncomfortably. "It wasn't personal, Morgan. Alicia wanted a small ceremony, small enough for baseball coach Miller but not your only sister," I countered, working to keep accusation from my tone. "That was complicated." His eyes darted to his phone as it lit up with a text. "Alicia's family has connections to certain publications, the guest list was strategic. And erasing me from your life is strategic too," I asked quietly. Something flickered in his expression, recognition, remorse perhaps before the bell above the door jingled. Taylor's face instantly transformed into a mask of neutrality. "Honey, what a surprise finding you here." Alicia's voice carried across the cafe as she approached, designer handbag swinging from her elbow. Nothing about her appearance was coincidental. She'd known exactly where we were meeting. "I was just passing by and thought I'd join you." She slid into the seat beside Taylor, placing a territorial hand on his arm. "Morgan, you look rested. Taking time off work." The subtle dig at my leave of absence didn't escape me, just a short break. "How was the honeymoon?" "Divine," she purred. "Taylor absolutely loved Bora Bora, didn't you, darling? Though the architecture there couldn't compare to what he's working on now." I directed my question to Taylor. New project. Before he could answer, Alicia jumped in. "More than a project, a complete life change. We're buying a house in Greenwich. Daddy's firm is opening a branch there, and they've offered Taylor a position he couldn't refuse. Greenwich, Connecticut. Nearly 500 miles away from Boston and everyone Taylor had ever known." "When did you decide this?" I asked, struggling to keep my voice steady. Taylor finally spoke. "It's recent. The opportunity came up after the wedding. The house needs work," Alicia continued, "but it's in the right neighborhood. The down payment is stretching us thin though. I saw my opening. I have savings." I offered sincerely, not a ton, but enough to help. "No strings attached, Taylor, if this is what you want." For a moment, Hope flickered in Taylor's eyes, but Alicia's laugh cut it short. That's adorable, but we're talking serious money, Morgan. Not a school counselor's savings account. Her dismissive tone cut deep. Besides, my parents are helping us, family that actually has resources, she added pointedly. Throughout this exchange, Taylor remained silent, eyes downcast. His passivity ignited something in me, not just hurt but genuine worry. Taylor, I said directly, ignoring Alicia completely. Is this really what you want? Moving away from everyone who loves you, from the firm you were so excited about joining? Don't answer that. Alicia snapped before catching herself. More softly, she added, Honey, you don't owe anyone explanations about our decisions. Our decisions. I challenged. Or yours that he follows. Morgan Taylor began, a warning tone I recognized from childhood, but I couldn't stop. Look at yourself, Taylor. When was the last time you made a choice without her approval? You didn't even decide who could attend your own wedding. Alicia's composed facade cracked. You weren't at our wedding because you've been undermining our relationship from day one. Always calling, always needing something, keeping him tethered to a dysfunctional past. Stop it. Taylor finally interrupted, looking between us with distress. Both of you. I reached for his hand across the table. Taylor, I'm worried about you. This isn't you cutting off family, moving away, letting someone else make all your decisions. There it is. Alicia stood dramatically. Always painting me as the villain when you're the one who can't let go. Taylor is a grown man who doesn't need his sister's permission or approval. He chose me, Morgan. When will you accept that? Taylor stood too, avoiding my eyes. We should go. Taylor, please, I started. She's right about one thing, he said quietly. I did choose her. I need you to respect that. They left together, Taylor never looking back as Alicia guided him through the door with a proprietorial hand on his lower back. Through the window, I watched her talking intently as they walked to the car, her expression animated while he nodded mechanically. Alone at the table with 2 cooling coffees, I realized direct confrontation wouldn't work. Alicia had too tight a grip, and public scenes only pushed Taylor further into her control. I needed a new approach. That evening, I started a journal, documenting every interaction, every red flag, every manipulation it observed. If I couldn't reach Taylor emotionally, perhaps evidence would eventually break through. A text from James, Taylor's childhood friend, arrived later. Saw you with Taylor today. Tried reaching him last week, got shut down. We're all worried. Let me know if I can help. I wasn't alone in my concerns, and that gave me both validation and hope. Somewhere in the distance, I could almost hear the ticking clock of Alicia's control. Greenwich was weeks away. My window to reach Taylor was closing fast. 3 months passed with minimal contact from Taylor beyond perfunctory text responses. I learned through our mother that they'd purchased the Greenwich house and would be moving after an upcoming family event, our parents' 30th anniversary dinner. I approached the evening with cautious optimism, spending days selecting a thoughtful gift, a custom photo album, chronicling their 3 decades together, and preparing emotionally for whatever dynamics awaited me. This dinner might be my last chance to connect with Taylor before physical distance made it nearly impossible. The restaurant was upscale, chosen by Alicia naturally, with white tablecloths and stemware that caught the light from ornate chandeliers. I arrived early, hugging my parents and placing my gift on the designated table. Is Taylor here yet? I asked, scanning the room. Mom nodded toward the bar. With Alicia and her parents. My stomach dropped. Her parents are here? For our family anniversary dinner. Dad shifted uncomfortably. Alicia thought it would be nice to combine celebrations since, well, all be family now. The Campbells are picking up the tab. I bit back my initial response, reminding myself I was here for reconciliation, not confrontation. When Taylor spotted me, he offered a tentative wave but made no move to approach, continuing his conversation with Alicia's father. Dinner seating had been predetermined place cards in elegant calligraphy that Alicia had undoubtedly arranged. I found myself at the opposite end of the long table from Taylor, seated between Alicia's college roommate, whom I'd never met, and an empty chair. Everyone else was strategically placed with their partners or engaged in existing conversations. Morgan, right. Alicia's roommate Brittany asked with practiced politeness. I hear you work at a school. I'm a school psychologist. I clarified, watching as Alicia's father dominated the conversation at the other end, Taylor nodding attentively beside him. How noble, Brittany replied with the same condescending tone Alicia often used. I could never work with children all day, so demanding. I forced a smile and turned toward my parents, hoping to join their conversation, but they were engaged with Alicia's mother in a discussion about the Greenwich property values. The strategic isolation was working. I felt like an outsider at my own family celebration. When Mr. Campbell stood to offer the first toast, his words confirmed my suspicions about their presence. To new beginnings and successful ventures, he announced, glass raised. Richard and Margaret, congratulations on 30 years, a milestone. Clayton Developments hopes to celebrate someday too, especially with our newest associate architect bringing fresh talent to our Connecticut office. Several people glanced my way, gauging my reaction to this public announcement of Taylor's career shift news that should have come from my brother directly. Mr. Campbell continued, to Taylor, who'll be instrumental in our new luxury condominium project. The Mitchell creativity with Campbell connections, a powerful combination. The table applauded while I struggled to maintain my composure. Taylor's dream had always been sustainable, community-focused architecture, not luxury condos for the wealthy. The brother I knew would have found this project soul-crushing. Throughout the multi-course meal, Alicia's father peppered his conversation with subtle digs about people who lack business acumen and settle for helping professions. Each comment was general enough to seem innocuous but specific enough that everyone knew they were directed at me. My parents said nothing, offering weak smiles when catching my eye but never intervening. Their silence hurt almost as much as Taylor's distance. When dessert arrived, Alicia clinked her glass. Since we're celebrating family milestones, she announced, Taylor and I have news we'd like to share. The table fell silent as Taylor looked momentarily confused before recognition dawned on his face. We're considering starting a family soon, Alicia declared, placing her hand over Taylor's. With the move and new position, the timing feels right. While congratulations erupted around the table, I watched my brother's face carefully. The surprise there told me this announcement was as new to him as it was to everyone else. Morgan dated someone who didn't want children, isn't that right? Alicia added, turning attention my way with false concern. That relationship ended rather painfully, as I recall Taylor mentioning, the deliberate exposure of my private heartbreak, a painful breakup 2 years prior that only Taylor had known the details of, stunned the table into awkward silence. Every eye turned to me. Congratulations. I managed, my voice steady despite the humiliation burning through me. I excused myself to the restroom, needing a moment to gather my composure. I had barely entered when the door swung open behind me and Alicia appeared, checking her lipstick in the mirror as if her arrival was coincidental. You know, she said conversationally, I've tried to give you chances, Morgan, but your constant judgment and attempts to insert yourself between Taylor and me are becoming tiresome. I met her eyes in the mirror. My brother and I were close for 28 years before you decided I was a threat. Her pleasant mask slipped, revealing the coldness beneath. Let me be crystal clear. You will never be part of Taylor's life again, not in any meaningful way. The sooner you accept that, the easier this will be for everyone. Hez, my brother, I said simply. That doesn't change because you wish it would. Her laugh was sharp. Doesn't it? Look around, Morgan. Your parents won't stand up to us because they're afraid of losing access to their only son. Your influence is gone. And if you keep pushing, well, move somewhere even further than Greenwich. The naked threat hung between us. Hell see through you eventually, I said with more confidence than I felt. Maybe, but by then it will be too late. She checked her reflection one final time. Family events, holidays, well, make appropriate appearances, you'll get your obligatory Christmas card. But the Taylor you knew has gone. The sooner you grieve that loss and move on, the better for everyone. She left me standing there, shaken by the calculated cruelty. This wasn't just about controlling Taylor, it was about erasing anything that came before her, anyone who knew the real Taylor beneath the polished exterior she was creating. I returned to the table, maintaining dignity through the rest of the dinner. When my parents opened gifts, they praised the photo album Eid created, lingering over childhood pictures of Taylor and me. For a brief moment, I caught my brother watching with an unreadable expression before Alicia recaptured his attention. As the evening ended, I hugged my parents goodbye, exchanged polite nods with the Campbells, and approached Taylor one last time. "I miss you," I said simply. Something flickered in his eyes' recognition, perhaps even longing before his expression smoothed back to neutral. "Take care, Morgan." They left as a unit, Taylor, Alicia, and her parents, his arm linked through hers as she guided him toward their waiting car. At home that night, my phone lit up with a text from Taylor. Sorry about tonight." Hope surged briefly until a second message followed. "Please don't contact me for a while. We need space." I stared at the screen, certain the second message had been either dictated or sent by Alicia herself. The wording was all wrong, for Taylor had never used the royal we when talking about his own needs before meeting her. Lying awake that night, I realized the Taylor intervention needed to become a rescue mission. Something had to change, and it couldn't be subtle anymore. To save my brother, I needed to understand exactly what Alicia was doing and why. The next morning, I called in sick and created a strategy board in my home office. If this were one of my student cases, what would I do? I needed information, patterns, evidence, anything that might help Taylor see what was happening before he was completely isolated in Connecticut. My first step was contacting Kyle, Taylor's college roommate who had been notably absent from the wedding despite their former closeness. We met at a quiet cafe far from Alicia's usual haunts. I wasn't surprised to be cut from the wedding list, Kyle admitted, stirring his coffee absently. Alicia made it clear from the beginning that I was a bad influence. Why? You and Taylor were inseparable in college. Kyle's expression darkened. Because I knew too much. I recognized her type immediately. She dated my roommate before Taylor. My attention sharpened. What do you mean, her type? Social climbers with a pattern. Kyle pulled out his phone, scrolling through photos until finding one from years earlier. This is Brad with his fiancée from senior year. Look familiar. I stared at the image of a smiling blonde woman beside a tall man in graduation robes. Though her hair color was different, the calculating smile and possessive body language were unmistakably Alicia's. That's Alicia? With another fiancé. Kyle nodded grimly. She went by Alyssa then. Dated Brad for 6 months, got engaged, isolated him from friends, pushed him to invest in her father's can't-miss opportunity. When Brad's trust fund was drained, she vanished. He dropped out before graduating. The revelation sent a chill through me. You think she's doing the same to Taylor. I know she is. When she showed up at that engagement party and spotted me, her face went white. Next day, Taylor told me they needed to take a break from our friendship. Kyle leaned forward. Have you noticed Taylor making unusual financial decisions lately? The Greenwich House, Mr. Campbell's development company, the pieces started connecting. Kyle provided contact information for Hannah, Brad's sister, who agreed to meet me the following day. Her story was disturbingly similar to mine. It was textbook isolation, Hannah explained, her expression haunted by the memory. First, the subtle criticisms, then scheduling conflicts preventing family gatherings, then outright hostility when questioned. By the time we realized what was happening, Brad had signed over power of attorney and invested his entire inheritance in Campbell Holdings. Campbell Holdings, I repeated. Not Clayton Developments. Hannah's eyebrows raised. They change company names every few years, but it's the same operation. Frederick Campbell has been investigated for fraud 3 times but always manages to settle before charges are filed. They target young professionals with family money or promising careers, use Alicia as bait, then bleed them dry. I felt physically ill. My brother doesn't have a trust fund, but he has talent they can exploit and a promising career they can leverage for loans and investments. Hannah reached across the table, squeezing my hand. The Campbells are drowning in debt beneath their designer facade. They need fresh capital for their latest scheme, and your brother is it. Armed with this knowledge, I spent the next week gathering evidence. Public records revealed Frederick Campbell's business was indeed failing, with tax liens and pending lawsuits hidden behind shell companies. The luxury development in Connecticut existed only as a prospectus with no building permits filed. Most damning was what I discovered with Aunt Heather's help. Her neighbor, a retired detective, ran a background check, revealing Alicia had legally changed her name 3 years ago from Alicia Carpenter to Alicia Campbell, adopting the family name to strengthen their respectable appearance. Through Taylor's friend at his architecture firm, I learned he had withdrawn his entire 401k early, incurring substantial penalties just after the wedding. The money had been transferred to Clayton Developments as an investment partnership. A photograph from a recent business dinner showed Taylor looking gaunt and exhausted, a stark contrast to the vibrant brother I knew. According to the colleague who shared it, Taylor wasn't allowed to attend professional events without Alicia present, and she had taken to answering emails sent to his work account. The evidence mounted, overwhelming and terrifying. I consulted with Aunt Heather's family lawyer, who confirmed my fears. With marriage came legal entanglements that would make recovery of funds difficult without Taylor's cooperation. The good news, the lawyer said, reviewing my documentation, is that you've built a compelling case showing potential coercion and fraud. The bad news is that none of it matters legally unless your brother recognizes what's happening and takes action himself. That was the impossible hurdle reaching Taylor through the wall Alicia had built around him. Every attempt at direct contact was intercepted or ignored. With their move to Greenwich weeks away, my window was closing fast. The final piece fell into place when Kyle introduced me to Carlos, a former employee of Campbell's previous company who had documentation of their pattern: find investor, drain resources, dissolve company, rebrand, repeat. The signature strategy was using Alicia to secure emotional and financial control over targets with promising assets or connections. They've gotten smarter, Carlos explained. Now they're using marriage to secure legal access to assets. Your brother isn't just an investor, he's collateral. Armed with undeniable evidence, I faced the most difficult decision: how to approach Taylor without triggering Alicia's defenses or pushing him further away. A frontal assault had failed at the cafe. A family gathering had become an ambush against me. I needed neutral territory where Taylor might actually listen somewhere. Alicia couldn't control the narrative. After careful consideration, I decided his workplace offered the best opportunity. Taylor had always separated his professional and personal lives, maintaining boundaries even Alicia might hesitate to cross openly. With a folder of evidence and a prayer that some part of my brother was still fighting to break free, I prepared for what might be my final chance to save him. I arrived at Taylor's architectural firm at 1:15 p.m. on a Wednesday, timing my visit during Alicia's standing weekly hair appointment. The receptionist recognized me from previous visits and waved me through to Taylor's office without announcement, a small mercy that gave me the element of surprise. Taylor looked up from his drafting table, genuine shock crossing his features before he could mask it with the neutral expression that had become his default around me. "Morgan, what are you doing here?" He glanced nervously toward the door as if expecting Alicia to materialize. "I needed to see you," I said simply, closing the door behind me. "Somewhere we could actually talk." He sighed, removing his glasses to rub the bridge of his nose, a gesture so familiar from our childhood that my heart ached. In his workplace, surrounded by the designs and models that represented his true passion, glimpses of the real Taylor shone through Alicia's programming. "I have a meeting in 20 minutes, he said, though he made no move to dismiss me. I placed the folder on his desk. "That's enough time to start this conversation. If this is about the wedding again, it's about your future, Taylor. And your safety." I kept my voice steady, professional, channeling the calm I used with anxious students. "I need you to look at these documents with your architects, I, the analytical mind, that questions inconsistencies and looks for structural integrity." Something in my approach resonated. Taylor had always respected evidence and logical reasoning. Hesitantly, he opened the folder, scanning the first page of financial records, showing Campbell Holdings' pattern of collapse and rebirth under different names. "What is this supposed to be?" he asked. But I noted he continued reading. "The true history of your father-in-law's business practices. 5 companies in 12 years, each following the same pattern." I pointed to the highlighted sections, each with investors who lost everything while the Campbells walked away. Taylor's brow furrowed as he turned to the next document, the background check showing Alicia's name change. The slight widening of his eyes told me this was news to him. "She never mentioned being Alicia Carpenter," I asked gently. "She said her mother remarried when she was young." he muttered, but doubt had crept into his voice. As Taylor continued through the evidence, the Connecticut property with no building permits, the multiple fraud investigations, the testimonials from previous victims, his breathing grew increasingly uneven. When he reached the bank statement showing his own 401k withdrawal transferred to Campbell's company, he looked up sharply. "How did you get this?" "That's not important right now," I said softly. "What matters is that you're being used, Taylor. The same way Brad was used before you, and likely others before him." For a moment, I saw recognition in his eyes, perhaps remembering inconsistencies, head noticed but dismissed, red flags head rationalized away. Then his phone rang, Alicia's custom ringtone filling the silence between us. The transformation was immediate and disturbing. Taylor's posture stiffened, eyes darting anxiously between me and the phone. He answered on speaker, a habit I suspected Alicia had insisted upon. "Hey," he said, voice carefully modulated. "Darling, I finished early at Vitals. Where should we meet for lunch?" Alicia's voice, syrupy sweet, filled the office. Taylor's eyes met mine, panic evident. "Actually, I have to finish something here. Maybe later." The brief silence on the other end spoke volumes. "What are you working on that's so important?" The sugary tone had an edge now. Before Taylor could respond, the office door swung open. Alicia stood there, phone still at her ear, eyes narrowing as she registered my presence. She must have already been on her way to the office when she called another of her surprise checks on Taylor. "Well," she said coldly, ending the call and dropping her phone into her designer purse. "This explains the sudden dedication to work." "Alicia," Taylor began, rising from his chair. "Save it." She cut him off, eyes fixed on the open folder. With remarkable speed, she crossed the room and slammed it shut. "Family ambush at the workplace now, Morgan?" How professional. I remained seated, maintaining the calm I'd practiced for this inevitable confrontation. Taylor deserves to know the truth about what's happening to him. "The truth?" Alicia laughed, a brittle sound devoid of humor. "You mean your pathetic attempts to poison him against me because you can't stand not being the most important person in his life anymore. Show him your real identification, Alyssa." I replied evenly, using her original name, deliberately. "Explain why your father changes company names every 2 years. Tell him about Brad's trust fund." The color drained from her face, before rage replaced shock. "You've been investigating me? My family? How dare you, Alicia?" Taylor interjected, standing between us now. "Some of these documents raise serious questions about the Connecticut investment." She rounded on him, expression transforming instantly to wounded vulnerability. "You're taking her side? After everything I've done for you? For us." "I'm not taking sides," Taylor insisted, though his voice lacked conviction. "But if the development project isn't properly permitted, it's all lies." Alicia snatched the folder from the desk, papers spilling across the floor. "Fabrications from a jealous, lonely woman who can't accept that you've outgrown her." I remained focused on Taylor, ignoring her outburst. "Your 401 is gone, Taylor. The house in Greenwich has 3 mortgages against it already. They're using you, just like they used others before you." Something in my words penetrated. Taylor stooped to pick up one of the fallen documents, the bank statement showing his retirement savings transferred to Campbell Holdings. "How did they get access to this account?" he asked quietly, a question directed more to himself than either of us. Alicia's strategy shifted instantly. Tears welled in her eyes as she clutched Taylor's arm. "I was going to surprise you. Daddy promised that investment would double by Christmas, enough for us to start our family with financial security." Without discussing it with me first, Taylor's voice had an unfamiliar edge, the first real resistance I'd heard him offer. "It was time-sensitive," she insisted. "An opportunity that wouldn't wait. Like the wedding guest list? The job in Connecticut? Starting a family." With each question, Taylor's voice grew stronger. "How many more decisions will be made for me, Alicia?" For a moment, I thought a breakthrough was imminent until Alicia played her ultimate card. "It's her or me, Taylor," she declared, tears vanishing as quickly as they'd appeared. "Right now, choose. Your wife who loves you and is building a future with you, or your sister who's determined to destroy our marriage." The ultimatum hung in the air between us. I knew better than to speak. Any intervention would only strengthen Alicia's narrative of interference. Taylor looked between us, conflict evident in every line of his face. For a breathless moment, I saw my brother, the real Taylor, fighting to break through. Then his shoulders slumped in defeat. "We should go, Alicia," he said quietly, not meeting my eyes. "Taylor, please," I started. "I can't do this now, Morgan." He gathered his coat and laptop. "I need time to think." Alicia's triumphant smile as she led him toward the door told me everything she knew. Once she got him alone, she would re-establish control. The papers remained scattered across the office floor, evidence he would never fully examine. As they reached the door, Taylor paused, finally meeting my gaze. "Don't come to the house," he said, voice low enough that Alicia, already in the hallway, couldn't hear. "It's not safe." The cryptic warning, an acknowledgement of danger or a threat to stay away, was his final communication before Alicia swept him from the office, her hand firmly guiding him toward the elevator. I stood alone among the scattered evidence of their exploitation, unsure if I'd made progress or pushed my brother further beyond reach. As I gathered the documents, Taylor's colleague David appeared in the doorway, concern evident on his face. "Is he okay?" he asked quietly. "He hasn't been himself for months." "No," I answered honestly. "He's not okay at all." "I've worked with Taylor for 3 years," David said, helping me collect the fallen papers. "The guy who designed that community center for underprivileged kids wouldn't recognize himself now. What she's doing to him, it's not right." "I know," I replied, grateful for the validation from someone else who knew the real Taylor, but I'm running out of options. David handed me the last document, his expression grim. For what it's worth, he came back from lunch looking shaken yesterday. Said something about needing to check his accounts. First independent thought I've heard from him in months. A small spark of hope ignited. Perhaps the seeds of doubt had been planted deeper than Alicia realized. As I left the building, my car came into view, and with it, the sickening sight of "Stay away" keyed deeply into the driver's side door. The message couldn't have been clearer, nor the timing more telling. The security guard who reviewed the parking lot footage with me pointed to the screen without hesitation. "That's her, the one who was just here with Mr. Mitchell. Walked straight up to your car after they left the building." I filed a police report, knowing it would lead nowhere significant but understanding the importance of documentation. Each incident, each threat, each manipulation formed another link in the chain of evidence I was building. Alicia had won this round, but her victory came with an unexpected consequence. She had shown her hand. The desperate escalation to property damage revealed her fear. Somewhere beneath the facade of control, Alicia Campbell knew she was losing her grip on Taylor. The question now was whether I could reach him before she took even more drastic measures to maintain it. 6 weeks passed in uneasy silence. My attempts to contact Taylor went unanswered. Our parents reported brief, superficial video calls that always included Alicia hovering in the background. The move to Greenwich proceeded as planned, physical distance now reinforcing the emotional barrier between us. Then, at 2:17 a.m. on a Tuesday, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. "Is this Morgan Mitchell?" a professional voice asked. "This is Nurse Reyes, from Greenwich Memorial Hospital. Your brother Taylor has been admitted, and you're listed as his emergency contact." My heart stopped. Is he okay? "What happened?" "He's stable," she assured me. "But I can't share more details over the phone. He's asking for you." I was in my car within minutes, breaking every speed limit on the 3-hour drive to Connecticut. The night stretched endlessly before me, my mind cycling through worst-case scenarios. Had Alicia hurt him physically? Had he hurt himself? Dawn was breaking as I reached the hospital, exhaustion forgotten as I rushed to the information desk. They directed me to a private room on the 3rd floor, where I found Taylor alone, a small mercy. He lay against white sheets, looking smaller than I remembered, dark circles beneath his eyes, making him appear years older than 32. "Morgan," he whispered when I entered, relief washing over his features. "You came." "Of course I came," I said, moving to his bedside and taking his hand. It felt thinner, the architectural calluses gone. "What happened, Taylor?" His eyes darted to the door before responding, a habitual check for Alicia's presence that broke my heart. "They're calling it a nervous breakdown," he said quietly. I collapsed during a presentation to investors. Couldn't breathe, couldn't speak. They thought it was a heart attack at first. I squeezed his hand. When was the last time you slept properly? Or ate a real meal? A humorless laugh escaped him. I can't remember. There's always another meeting, another revision, another social obligation. Alicia schedules everything back to back, says we need to maximize opportunities. The dam finally broke as Taylor's composure crumbled. She's been monitoring everything, Morgan. My emails, phone calls, bank accounts. I haven't spoken to anyone without her present in months. When I questioned the Connecticut project timeline last week, she said she'd call her father's connections to ensure it'd never work in architecture again. Each revelation confirmed my worst fears. Taylor, this is abuse, I know, he whispered, the admission clearly costing him. I think I've known for a while, but it was easier to believe I was crazy than accept what was happening. When you showed me those documents at the office, it was like waking up from a fog. Hope surged within me. Then come home with me. Today, we'll figure everything out. His expression darkened. It's not that simple. She has power of attorney, Morgan. After the wedding, when I was signing all those investment papers, there were other documents. I didn't read everything. The implication hit me like physical blow. She has legal control of your assets. Taylor nodded miserably. Checking accounts, savings, investment portfolio, she moved everything into joint accounts, then to her name for tax purposes. The house is in her name because of my questionable credit history, which didn't exist until she maxed out credit cards I didn't know I had. Taylor, that's financial abuse. It's illegal. The Connecticut project is collapsing. He continued, voice hollow. Frederick didn't secure proper permits. Investors are pulling out. Has been using my professional reputation and licensure to cut corners. If it falls apart, I could face liability, even criminal charges. The full picture was worse than I'd imagined. Taylor wasn't just emotionally trapped, he was legally entangled in the Campbell's fraudulent schemes. Where is Alicia now? I asked. Fundraising gala in New York. When the hospital called, she said she couldn't leave because her father was meeting with potential investors. His voice broke. My episode was inconveniently timed. Her absence was our opportunity. Listen to me, Taylor. Pack a bag and come stay with Aunt Heather. She's outside Boston, rural enough that you can lie low while we sort this out legally. For the first time, real hope flickered in his eyes. You'd still help me? After everything. You're my brother, I said simply. Nothing changes that. As we discussed logistics for his temporary escape, a nurse entered with discharge papers and medication. Taylor signed the forms with a trembling hand, agreeing to follow up with a psychiatrist appointments I knew Alicia would never allow to happen. We were gathering his few belongings when voices in the hallway froze us both. Alicia's unmistakable tone, accompanied by our parents' murmured responses. The sanctuary of our reunion shattered as the door swung open. Alicia entered first, designer outfit immaculate despite the early hour, performing concern like a Broadway actress. Darling, I came as soon as I could. She rushed to Taylor's side, pointedly inserting herself between us, before registering my presence with theatrical surprise. Morgan? Who called you? I'm his emergency contact, I replied calmly, refusing to be displaced from Taylor's bedside. Our parents hovered awkwardly in the doorway, expressions conflicted as they took in the tableau. Mom's anxious eyes darted between us while Dad examined the floor tiles with unwarranted fascination. Well, I'm here now, Alicia announced, her grip on Taylor's arm visibly tightening. We should get you home to rest, away from stressful influences. The pointed look in my direction made her meaning clear. Taylor's newfound resolve began to waver under her practiced manipulation. I could see him shrinking before my eyes, the brief independence already fading. Actually, I interjected, Taylor and I were discussing him staying with Aunt Heather for a few days. Quiet recovery time. Alicia's mask slipped momentarily, fury flashing across her features before the concerned wife persona reasserted itself. That's unnecessary. I've already arranged for a private nurse at home. I think some family time would be good for me, Taylor said, his voice stronger than I expected. Alicia's response was immediate and calculated. But I am your family now, Taylor. Your primary family. She turned to our parents. Richard, Margaret, surely you understand that a husband and wife need to heal together. Taylor belongs at home with me. My father cleared his throat uncomfortably. Maybe Alicia's right, Taylor. Marriage means supporting each other through health crises. Stop it. Taylor's unexpected outburst silenced the room. Everyone, stop telling me what I need. The outburst seemed to surprise Taylor himself as much as everyone else. Into the shocked silence, he continued more quietly. I haven't made a decision for myself in years. Not where I live, not where I work, not who I see. His gaze met mine, then our parents. I need space to think clearly. Without pressure, Alicia's strategy shifted instantly. Tears filled her eyes as she clutched Taylor's hand. You don't mean that. This is your condition talking. The doctor said confusion is normal after what you've experienced. I'm not confused about the empty bank accounts, Alicia, Taylor replied, his voice steady. Or the credit card statements I found. Or the business permits your father forged with my license number. The room stilled as Alicia processed that her financial manipulations had been discovered. When she spoke again, all pretense of caring vanished. You signed those papers willingly, she hissed. Your name is on everything. If the business fails, you'll face charges, not us. We've been through this before, Taylor. We know how to protect ourselves. The admission of previous schemes hung in the air, damning in its casual delivery. Our parents' expressions transformed from confusion to dawning horror as they finally witnessed the true Alicia. Did you just threaten my son? My mother asked, finding her voice at last. Alicia straightened, reassessing the room now that her cover was blown. This is a private matter between husband and wife. You all need to leave. Not happening, I stated firmly, moving closer to Taylor. What followed was the confrontation Eid both dreaded and anticipated for years. Alicia abandoned all pretense, her threats becoming increasingly explicit as she detailed how thoroughly she would destroy Taylor professionally and financially if he left. You think architecture firms will hire someone under investigation for permit fraud? You think any bank will give you loans with your credit score? You have nothing without me, Taylor. Nothing. Taylor listened to her tirade with a strange calm, as if each venomous word only confirmed the decision he'd already made. When security arrived, summoned by a nurse concerned about the escalating situation, Alicia refused to leave voluntarily. I'm his wife, she shouted as two officers escorted her from the room. This is my hospital. My father donated the wing you're standing in. Her final threat echoed down the hallway. You'll regret this, Taylor. All of you will. In the aftermath of her removal, my parents approached Taylor's bed cautiously, as if seeing their son clearly for the first time in years. I'm so sorry, Mom whispered, tears streaming down her face. We should have listened to Morgan. We should have seen what was happening. Dad placed a hand on Taylor's shoulder. Well, help you through this, son. Whatever it takes. Taylor nodded, exhaustion evident in every line of his face, but determination present too. I need to stay somewhere she can't find me while I figure out next steps. Aunt Heather's. I confirmed. I already called her. She's preparing the guest room. As we gathered Taylor's belongings and completed discharge paperwork, a weight lifted between us, the first honest family conversation we'd had in years. While the legal and financial entanglements would take months to unravel, the emotional bonds were already being rewoven. The path ahead would be difficult. Alicia and her family wouldn't relinquish control without a fight. Taylor's finances were devastated, his professional reputation potentially compromised, and the psychological healing had only just begun. But as we walked out of the hospital together, Taylor turned to me with the first genuine smile I'd seen from him in years. Thank you for not giving up on me, he said simply. Never, I promised, not ever. 3 months after the hospital confrontation, Taylor sat on Aunt Heather's porch swing, architectural sketches spread across his lap. The early autumn breeze ruffled pages of designs for a community center, his first independent project since breaking free from Alicia's control. How's it coming? I asked, settling beside him with 2 mugs of coffee. Getting there, he replied, accepting the steaming cup gratefully. The nonprofit committee loved the initial concept. Low cost, sustainable materials, but still visually striking. The change in him over these months had been gradual but profound. The hollowed cheeks had filled out, the constant anxiety in his eyes replaced by focused determination. He smiled more easily, laughed occasionally small victories that continued to fill me with quiet joy. The legal battle with the Campbells raged on, but the first major victory had come 6 weeks earlier when Taylor's lawyer successfully argued for an emergency injunction freezing the assets Alicia had transferred from his accounts. The annulment proceedings were moving forward, supported by substantial evidence of fraud and coercion. Aunt Heather's cottage had become Taylor's sanctuary during this transition period. Its remote location and Heather's fierce protectiveness created a safe environment for his recovery. My weekly visits had evolved from checking on his mental state to genuine sibling reconnection, rebuilding the bond that Alicia had so methodically attempted to destroy. Our parents visited regularly as well, their initial shame at enabling Alicia's manipulation gradually giving way to active participation in Taylor's healing process. We had enrolled in family therapy sessions with Dr. Reeves, a specialist in recovery from coercive control. It's like deprogramming from a cult, Dr. Reeves had explained during our first group session. The techniques used against Taylor were designed to break down his identity and replace it with a version compliant to their needs. Recovery isn't just about legal separation, it's about psychological liberation. Those sessions often left all of us emotionally drained, but ultimately strengthened. Dad had broken down during one particularly intense meeting, confessing his failure to protect his son. I was impressed by their money, their connections, he admitted through tears. I wanted to believe Taylor had moved up in the world, that the changes in him were just maturity. I chose willful blindness over uncomfortable truth. Mom had faced her own reckoning, acknowledging how her fear of losing access to Taylor had led her to accommodate Alicia's increasingly unreasonable demands. I kept thinking, if we just went along with everything, she would eventually accept us. I sacrificed you, Morgan, to maintain the illusion of family harmony. These painful admissions became stepping stones toward authentic healing. Each week, the conversations grew more honest, the connections more genuine. Taylor's professional rehabilitation progressed alongside his emotional recovery. His former firm had placed him on extended leave while investigating the forged permits, a situation that initially devastated him but ultimately provided necessary space for reflection. I don't think I want to go back to corporate architecture anyway, Taylor confided one evening. The community projects always brought me the most satisfaction. Maybe this is the universe forcing me back to my original purpose. His therapist, Dr. Chen, had been instrumental in helping him recognize the warning signs Head missed with Alicia and understand why Head been vulnerable to her manipulation. Our childhood taught us both that love requires sacrifice. Taylor explained after one particularly insightful session. You sacrificed your early adulthood to raise me. I learned that real love meant giving up pieces of yourself for others. Alicia exploited that belief masterfully. 2 months into his recovery, Taylor made the difficult decision to confront Alicia's parents directly. With his lawyer present, he met Frederick and Eleanor Campbell at a neutral location to address their knowledge and facilitation of Alicia's behavior. They didn't deny anything. Taylor recounted afterward, still shaken by the encounter. Frederick actually seemed proud of Alicia's business acumen. They see people as resources to be exploited, not human beings. The scariest part was realizing this has been their family business model for generations. The legal proceedings had revealed 5 previous victims before Taylor, young professionals or individuals with family money who had been systematically manipulated, drained of resources, and discarded. 2 had come forward to provide statements for Taylor's case, their stories eerily similar to his experience. Not all recoveries happened at the same pace. While Taylor was making strides professionally and emotionally, our parents' journey took longer. The guilt they carried manifested in different ways. Dad threw himself into researching financial recovery options for Taylor, while Mom alternated between overprotectiveness and giving him too much space. They're trying, Aunt Heather observed during one of our private conversations. That's more than many families manage after this kind of betrayal. She had been our rock throughout the process, offering her home without hesitation and providing the stable, judgment-free environment Taylor needed. The strength of extended family became another lesson from this ordeal. Sometimes, support comes from unexpected directions. friends who had been pushed out of Taylor's life gradually reconnected. James, who had maintained contact with me even when Taylor stopped responding, became a regular visitor to the cottage. Kyle organized a weekend gathering of college friends, giving Taylor back pieces of his identity that Alicia had systematically erased. 6 months after the hospital confrontation, Taylor took his biggest step toward independence, moving into his own apartment near our childhood neighborhood and accepting a position with a small firm specializing in sustainable community projects. Lower salary, better soul, he joked as we unpacked boxes in his new space. But the contentment in his eyes told the true story. This was a choice made freely, aligned with his authentic values, rather than someone else's expectations. The legal battles continued, but they no longer consumed our daily thoughts. Taylor had recovered approximately 60% of his stolen assets, enough to start fresh, though the financial setback would impact him for years. More importantly, the criminal investigation into the Campbell's business practices had expanded, with federal authorities now examining their pattern of fraud across state lines. Almost exactly 1 year after discovering his wedding photos on Instagram, Taylor tentatively began dating again a quiet, thoughtful librarian named Claire who understood his need for independence and respected his boundaries. Their relationship progressed slowly, built on honest communication rather than whirlwind romance. She asked for my opinion about which restaurant to try for dinner. Taylor told me with a mixture of amusement and appreciation after their third date. Such a small thing, but I almost cried. Being asked what I want still feels revolutionary. As our family healed, I reflected on the lessons from this harrowing journey. How vulnerable we all are to manipulation when it targets our deepest insecurities and greatest hopes. How isolation is the first and most effective strategy of control. How families can be both unwitting enablers and ultimate saviors. Most importantly, I learned that genuine love sometimes requires fighting for someone even when they push you away, recognizing the difference between respecting boundaries and abandoning someone to harm. On a crisp fall afternoon, 2 years after the wedding that excluded me, Taylor and I sat by the lake where we'd spent countless childhood hours, skipping stones and sharing secrets. He handed me a small wrapped package. "What's this for?" I asked, turning the box in my hands. "Just open it," he urged with a small smile. Inside lay a delicate silver bracelet. I lifted it to find an inscription on the inside band. "Always there for each other." "Our childhood pact," I whispered, recognition warming my chest. Taylor nodded, suddenly serious. "You kept your promise even when I couldn't keep mine, even when I forgot the promise existed." As he helped fasten the bracelet around my wrist, I understood that our bond had been transformed through this ordeal, tested, broken, rebuilt, stronger. The siblings who emerged from this nightmare weren't the same people who entered it, but the core truth remained unchanged. Family isn't defined by those who claim the title, but by those who stand beside you when the world caves in. Taylor had found his voice again, his purpose, his autonomy, and I had rediscovered the brother Eid almost lost not just to Alicia, but to a system that enables abusers through silence and social pressure. "You know what I've been thinking about lately," Taylor said as we watched the sunset paint the lake copper and gold. "What's that?" "How sometimes loving someone means fighting for them even when they fight against you." He skipped a stone across the water, hitting 5 perfect bounces. "You saw me when I couldn't see myself." As darkness settled around us, we made our way back to our cars, walking shoulder to shoulder. The road ahead would hold more challenges, legal, financial, emotional, but the isolation that had made Taylor vulnerable had been permanently broken. Whatever came next, he would face it surrounded by authentic love, not the counterfeit version that had nearly destroyed him. Family bonds, I realized, run deeper than any outside force can truly sever. They may stretch, strain, or temporarily break, but when rooted in genuine love, they find their way back to wholeness, often stronger at the mended places than they ever were before. Have you ever had to fight for a relationship when everyone else was ready to give up? Or recognize signs of manipulation in a loved one's relationship? Share your experiences in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please hit like and subscribe to our channel for more stories of family resilience and healing. Remember that sometimes loving someone means being the one voice that refuses to be silenced, even when it's the hardest path. Thank you for listening to our story. and may you find the strength to stand by those you love through their darkest moments.